Aloha, namaste, and welcome. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to do some more Krishna book reading today. But first, we will engage in our hearing and chanting of Krishna's names. So please join along. Let me offer my respects to you, and I will offer my respectful obeisances unto my Gurudev, my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru, Siddha Swarupananda, Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Srimate Sila Swarupananda Haribol, Namaste, please accept my respects. Thank you again for your joining, and if you've been following along, thank you very much. If this is your first time, please subscribe to my channel and like and share. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Somebody on my YouTube asked me about that, what it means. Om is that could be a class in itself. Om is sort of the all-encompassing sound manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so when we say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, we offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading. Just as the sound vibration Om, when you say Om, it is called the Omkara, the little, what looks like a 30, right? Omkara and Pranava, it's a manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in sound. And this is a wonderful thing to remember because all knowledge is transmitted through sound. When Lord Brahma received the information about the creation of the universe, he received it through sound, through the heart. And even the creations of the universe are done through sound vibrations, through mantras. It's all very wonderful. We receive our information through sound vibrations. We chant through a sound vibration. And but there is a difference in just an average sound vibration, like saying the word cake or dog, and the spiritual sound of the names of Krishna, which are, although transmitted through a sound vibration, are transcendental and spiritual. So if you say the word Krishna, Krishna, and you hear that word, you are receiving the benediction, you are receiving Krishna. If you tried to say something like mango, 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 you would never taste the flavor of a mango. But if you say Krishna, Krishna, you will eventually begin to taste the peace and happiness from hearing that. And also the pastimes, the Krishna Katha, they're hearing about Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna in these stories. So we are going to continue and read. And we were reading actually most of the chapter about the deliverance of Aghasura. And Aghasura, if you remember, was another demon who had assumed a form of a very large and fat snake. And his intention was not only to, I guess you could say, enact revenge for his brother Bakasura the bird and the Putana the witch, who were his brother and sister demons that were also killed by Krishna. He wanted to relieve the debt of his brother and sister by killing Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan. So he came and he basically stretched his mouth open, and the cowherd boys were like, wow, okay, this kind of looks like a snake, but let's go in anyway because Krishna will just kill this demon anyway. It's just really wonderful. And Krishna was like, oh, wow, okay. So, and I think there's a picture in the last video, Krishna looking at all the cowherd boys going in. And so Krishna, of course, went in, and Aghasura tried to swallow him, but he expanded himself so he blocked the air passage. And then, of course, Aghasura couldn't breathe and it had no way for his life force to go anywhere, just blew a hole out through his head. So this is all very wonderful. And so we are going to continue that because we're going to get into the next story with that about Lord Brahma stealing the boys and calves. So the demigods, of course, were having a party and everybody was jubilant and there's flowers from heaven and musical instruments being played. When Lord Brahma, who is the creator demigod of the universe, right? He's the supreme creator of the universe. But every universe, there are multiple universes, have a Lord Brahma position. And some Lord Brahmas are have many, many more heads. Lord Brahma has 4 heads. In other words, he can see in a particular amount of like 12 to 16 dimensions. And that is actually proven by Western science, empirical science, in the theory of the string theory that says there are multiple dimensions within the universe. This is true, but they already knew about that millions of years before in the Vedic civilization. That Lord Brahma can see in all the dimensions. And it's a very small universe, our universe, compared, because there's more stories where Lord Brahma meets many of the other Lord Brahmas, and some of them have millions of heads or hundreds of heads or thousands of heads, and those universes are much, much more complicated. So it's very mind-blowing, because even Western science is sort of only entertaining the idea of multiple universes and parallel universes and things like that, but they haven't really gotten into it. But that is a fact. There are many, many, many multiple universes. Some are very, very complicated and have multiple dimensions or millions of dimensions, and this is just the material world. So who's to say, how big the spiritual world is too? It's very mind-blowing, actually, if you really think about it. When Lord Brahma heard those auspicious vibrations which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon glorious pastimes of the personality of Godhead. The gigantic mouth of the demon remained in an open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastimes for all the cowherd boys. Yeah, it was a playground. It became a playground for the boys. They're just climbing up it and, sliding down things, and they just have fun with it. So the killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Kaumara. After 5 years, up to the 10th year, they are called Pauganda. And after the 10th year, up to the 15th year, they are called Kaishora. After the 15th year, boys are called youths. So for 1 year, there was no discussion of the incident of the Aghasura demon in the village of Vraja. But when they attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incident with great wonder. The reason for this will be clear in the next chapter. For Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is far greater than such demigods as Lord Brahma, it is not at all difficult to award one the opportunity of merging with his eternal body. This he awarded to Aghasura. Aghasura was certainly the most sinful living entity, and it is not possible for the sinful to merge into the existence of the absolute truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Aghasura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all sinful reaction. Persons constantly thinking of the eternal form of the Lord in the shape of the deity or in the shape of a mental form are awarded the transcendental goal of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Excuse me. So we can just imagine the elevated position of someone like Aghasura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, personally entered. Great sages, meditator, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within the heart, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temples. In that way, they become liberated from all material contamination, and at the end of the body, enter into the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of the Lord within the mind. But in the case of Aghasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered. Aghasura's position was therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or the greatest yogis. Pretty amazing. Maharaj Parikshit, and remember this figure, okay? Maharaj Parikshit, of course, was learning in the Srimad Bhagavatam within the 7-day period of the pastimes of Krishna and all the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga from Shukadev Goswami. So Maharaj Parikshit, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaj Parikshit when he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him, and thus he questioned the sage Shukadev Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king. That's a very interesting thing. It says here that Krishna saved Maharaj Parikshit's life. Well, at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, which is referred to in the Mahabharata and also in briefly, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end, there were so many people that were killed, millions, hundreds of millions of people, actually, something like that, or 1 million or 100 million, just so many people were fighting in this war, like half the world or something like that. And so because there were so many people killed, there was a son of, I believe it was a Dronacharya, who was the military guru of the Pandavas, was killed. And because of that, he had done something where he killed off the sons of the Pandavas in their sleep, beheaded them. And then that's a whole another story of what happened. He actually was cursed to have to walk the earth for so many thousands of years. And but before he did that, before he was cursed, he tried to throw what was called a Brahmastra, astra. They call it astra because they're actually weapons that were very much like nuclear weapons that were launched, that were capable of being launched by mantras. We don't, in this day and age, we've lost this technology. So in a lot of ways, our technology has gone backwards. So we don't actually have this kind of capability of doing these things. But this Ashvatthama, I think his name is Ashvatthama, he tried to launch a nuclear weapon, one of these astras, on the woman who was carrying the last descendant of the child of these sons of Pandava. So it was a lineage king. So he tried to kill them and kill the woman. But Krishna expanded himself in the womb around the woman and protected her and the child from this weapon. So that's that's meant by Maharishi Parikshit, was protected by Krishna, because he knew that he would be a great devotee, so he was protecting him. King Parikshit was a bit astonished to understand that the killing of the Agashura demon was not discussed for 1 year until after the boys attained the Pauganda age. Maharaj Parikshit was very inquisitive to learn this, for he was sure that such an incident was due to the working of Krishna's different energies. So there was a year that was missing in there, and that's what we're going to get into in the story. Generally, the Kshatriyas, or the administrative class, are always busy with their political affairs. And they have very little chance to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. But while Parikshit Maharaj was hearing these transcendental pastimes, he considered himself to be very fortunate, because he was hearing from Shukadev Goswami, the greatest authority on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus being requested by Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, quality, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of the Agashura demon. So we're going to get into a little bit more of this. Chapter 13, the stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. Shukadev Goswami was very much encouraged when Maharaj Parikshit asked him why the coward boys did not discuss the death of Agashura until after 1 year had passed. He explained thus: "My dear king, you are making the subject matter of the transcendental pastimes of Krishna fresher by your inquisitiveness." So it's very wonderful. There's a very important point in this, and that is that the science of Bhakti Yoga, the sweetness of Bhakti Yoga, ever continues and ever is expanded by people handing down this information. They hear it from their Guru Dev, like I heard from my Guru Dev, and my Guru Dev heard from his Guru Dev. And when people discuss these things, also by asking questions. So I do encourage, if you have questions, please do ask, and then we can discuss this more. And it's a very wonderful and joyful ability to just talk about Krishna and talk about the science of bhakti, that it becomes a very sweet endeavor to do that, and you can discuss more. And this is ever going on eternally, becoming more and more sweet. It is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc. in hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. And for one who is wrapped in hearing and chanting Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. So very much like if you read a book, a material book or a movie, it's only exciting one time, or maybe you haven't seen it in 5 years, you watch it again, you're like, oh, okay, that was kind of cool. But then it just doesn't become sweeter. You've seen it, but when you talk about Krishna's pastimes and you read about Krishna's pastimes, it's ever fresh, it's ever continuing, and you're always getting enjoyment from reading it. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter in contrast to material subject matter. Material subject matter becomes stale, and if one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time, he wants change. But as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nityanavana. It was a big word, actually. It's just all strung together. Nityanavana Vayamana. It's a big word. Nitya means eternal. That's one thing I do know. This means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but will remain fresh and eager to hear more and more. This is very true. Every time I read these things, read from Bhaktivedanta or read scripture, I always get new insight. This is the wonderful thing about these scriptures. And material things, whether they're food or music or songs, we all have our propensities of like, oh, I like this group like the Beatles, or I like this food like I don't know what it might be, Beyond Burger or whatever, and I like this this thing. But if you actually put that into context, for example, if you had to listen to the same Beatles song for 2 weeks or 3 weeks straight and only eat Beyond Burgers for 3 weeks, after a while that would get really old. You'd want, you think, oh, okay, this is great, but then it's like, oh, Beyond Burger again, okay, oh, another Beyond Burger. It's like breakfast Beyond Burger, lunch Beyond Burger, and or ice cream, and you're like, I don't want ice cream, I want something else, It's like, or you're listening to, at least it's not the Yoko Ono song number 9 or whatever, it's like, but or any good song like Yesterday, and then you're like, oh wow, I heard this song yesterday and now I've heard it 3 times and I'm just over it. I'm so sick of this song. That's what will happen. But when you hear it and you chant Krishna's names, you can go on and on and on. It's never ceases in its pleasure and enjoyment. It is due to the duty of the spiritual master to disclose all confidential subject matter to the inquisitive and sincere disciple. Thus, Shukadeva Goswami began to explain why the killing of Agashura was not discussed until 1 year had passed. Shukadeva Goswami told the king, "Now hear this secret with attention." Very important. Always focus with attention. After saving his friends from the mouth of Agashura and after killing the demon, Lord Krishna brought his friends to the bank of the Jamuna and addressed them as follows. My dear friends, just see how this spot is very nice for taking lunch and playing on the soft, sandy Jamuna bank. You can see how the lotus flowers in the water are beautifully blown and how they distribute their flavor all around. The chirping of the birds, along with the cooing of the peacocks, surrounded by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combine and present sound vibrations that echo one another. And this just enriches the beautiful scenery created by the trees here. Let us have our lunch in this spot, because it is already late and we are feeling hungry. Let the calves remain near us and let them drink water from the Jamuna. While we engage in our lunch taking, the calves may engage in eating the soft grasses that are in this spot. On hearing this proposal from Krishna, all the boys became very glad and said, "Certainly, let us sit down here and take our lunch." Then they let loose the calves to eat the soft grass. Sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center, they began to open their different boxes brought from home. Lord Sri Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys kept their faces toward him. They ate and constantly enjoyed seeing the Lord face to face. Krishna appeared to be the whirl of a lotus flower, and the boys surrounding him appeared to be its different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves of flowers, and barks of trees, and placed them under their different boxes, and thus they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different kinds of relations with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While thus enjoying lunch with his friends, Lord Krishna's flute was pushed within the belt of his cloth, and his bugle and cane were pushed in on the left-hand side of his cloth. He was holding a lump of foodstuff prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and pieces of fruit salad in his left palm, which could be seen through his petal-like finger joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepts the results of all great sacrifices, was laughing and joking and enjoying the lunch with his friends in Vrindavan, and thus the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. So this is very wonderful. This is all the relationships that the living entities have with Krishna, and that you can have with Krishna, and that is the prime goal of our relationship with Krishna, is to reinstate what has already existed before, the previous relationship, because eternally we have a relationship with Krishna, but in the material world we decide to turn our back to Krishna. We want to be our own lords, but this reinstating of our relationship with Krishna is very, very sweet and so multifarious. It really has no end in its relationships, and this is just a prime example of the cowherd boys manifesting the different kinds of relationships with Krishna. It's very, very sweet. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're just, whoa, it's wonderful. They're not even thinking like, oh, this is God, They're just like enjoying this loving relationships. At that time, the calves that were pasturing nearby entered into a deep forest, allured by new grasses, and gradually went out of sight. When the boys saw that the calves were not nearby, they became afraid for their safety and immediately cried out, "Krishna!" Krishna is the killer of fear personified. As we have said in the past, Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion. I will give you all protection. Do not fear. Krishna will give us all protection, and therefore any kind of fear that's manifested by the devotees is immediately dealt with Krishna, because he doesn't want anyone to fear. And in truth, nobody has anything fearful, but this is all part of the pastimes. Out of his great affection, Krishna did not want his friends to give up their pleasing lunch engagement and go searching for the calves. He therefore said, "My dear friends, you need not interrupt your lunch. Go on enjoying. I am going personally where the calves are." Thus Lord Krishna immediately started to search out the calves in the caves and bushes. He searched in the mountain holes and in the forest, but nowhere could he find them. It's really good, but we're running out of time. I think I'm going to finish the rest of the story. It's very, very wonderful. And because we just got a little bit into it, so it involves Lord Brahma, the creator, and we're going to get more into that next time. So thank you very much. We're going to chant some, and Krishna, Krishna that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining in. Namaste.